It was all of a sudden that we realized that there are 7 women from the Fellowship of the Least Coin here at the Assembly of the World Council of Churches. And so we took the opportunity to meet each other in face-to-face situation, because we know each other mainly only from the screen.
Yeah.
So this is a really big difference. The Fellowship of the Least Coin is a women's grassroots movement, a prayer movement, which was started 65 years ago by an Asian woman, an Indian woman, Shanti Salomon, who went to Asia with some Presbyterian North American women in a reconciliation mission. And they thought we women should be in peace together. In Asia after the Second World War, there had been also damage and bad things and enemies, and countries who became enemies, and these women wanted to bring peace to the region. So after a while, this movement spread out to other continents, and today we can say that we cover the whole world. Every continent has its own regional coordinator. For instance, me, I'm Martina Heinrichs, and coming from the Ecumenical Forum of European Christian Women, I am responsible for Europe, to bring in projects for my continent, for my region. And every year we, also the regional coordinators of other countries, other continents, bring in our projects for women and children. And these projects are really from the grassroots and from the basics, like sewing cooperative of women in Guatemala, or a feminist theologian journal in Asia, in God's Image it is called.
Yes.
And in Africa, widow projects against discrimination of widows, just to name some examples.
My name is Reverend Sierra Bed, and I joined the Fellowship of the Least Coin during COVID. And I also echo what my sister Matira said, that we are so happy to see each other face to face. We've been looking at each other online on the screen, and this is the first time for us to meet. So I'm so happy and excited. I am looking after the Gender and Women's Desk of the Pacific Conference of Churches, that is in the Pacific region. And I am looking after 31 member churches. And I have to say that the Women's Fellowship in our member churches, they were so happy. They meet every Thursdays just to have fellowship with each other. And the Fellowship of the Least Coin is also one of their parts in having fellowship, and also through the call of prayer.
I'm one of the most recent people on the board of the International Fellowship of the Least Coin. I represent the Women's International Church in Canada, and it was so good to be able to come together with the Fellowship of the Least Coin and to share prayer with all of them. I think that was one of the things I felt the first meeting I was at. The unity that we were able to share, but we were on Zoom, we weren't in person. And that was a real privilege to be part of that. It was interesting on my first meeting to realise that we actually were meeting over a 24-hour period because of where we lived in the world. I live in Canada, but there were people from Philippines and Australia and Europe and everything like that. But what we had in common was our love of God and being able to share that through prayer and to help with the projects that we can give grants to, maybe small grants, but it's amazing what God can do through those grants.
My name is Maria Laws, and I'm an ordained minister from Jamaica Baptist Union in Jamaica, and I'm a member of the Fellowship of the Least Coins. I represent I'm at the 11th General Assembly of the World Council of Churches, and I represent the Caribbean Women Theologians for Transformation, and I also represent PAWE, that's the Pan-African Women in Ecumenical and Theological Education movement. So I am here with all these wonderful women who we have only been meeting online, and now we're seeing each other face to face for the first time, putting names to faces and faces to real persons present and sharing our stories. It has been a real blessing. One of the things that has struck me is the fact that we share the same issues across the board. Wherever we are located in the world, the same issues, dominated particularly by women's marginalization, the abuse, and the domination of a male patriarchy, and the fact that women too inhabit this, and we continue to maintain some systems and keep them in place. I have been affiliated with the Fellowship of the Least Coins for 2 years, but not yet fully immersed, new to it, and still trying to catch my feet, given how we are organized in the Caribbean. The network is not yet sufficiently tight to make use of a number of the opportunities that are there. This is one of the reasons why this year we are going through the process of reconstructing our network to organize ourselves differently so that we can make use of the opportunities that are coming our way and channel them through us. We have been doing a lot on our own, and that is a significant weight, so we are happy for the partnership that we can share with other sisters, contribute as well, and it's a mutual relationship, so we're looking forward to that fellowship.
I live in a large city in Canada called London, which is often mistaken for London, England. And attend a large congregation. We have a number of young people, and one of the things that I do there is to work with the young people. Once I got involved with the Fellowship of the Least Coin, I really wanted to share that experience with these young people. And we decided that we would set up a few sessions where we would meet together, we would pray together and learn more about the Fellowship of the Least Coin. I found this experience was wonderful for me in that I was able to share what Fellowship of the Least Coin meant to me, but it also meant that we could share in prayer concerns for women and children throughout the world who were suffering injustices. And I found that the young people could identify with this. It made it much more real that they could think of these people in different parts of the world who were really struggling, much more so than where we live in Canada, where we started to realise we had so much and we wanted to share. What we did each meeting was we used our least coin, which for us in Canada is a 5 cent. And each person brought their 5 cents and put it in each time they said a prayer for people in different parts of the world. We have continued this with our young people, and once a year we actually send all of the money that we have given through these prayer sessions to the Women's Interchurch Council of Canada, who then pass it on to the International Fellowship of the Least Coin. And this, I feel for me, has been an amazing experience to share with these young people, and hopefully they too can continue to be involved in Fellowship of the Least Coin and share it with their friends at high school and as they go on to further study.
I grew up in a village, and during my childhood, I witnessed my mother, my grandmother, every time they go to the women's fellowship. The Fellowship of the Least Coin was well known during those times, and I saw them taking activities and programs that the Fellowship of the Least Coin handed to the village people. Right? The village they don't have any electricity, they don't have any water supply, they have to go to the mountains to collect the water, but that's how far the Fellowship of the Least Coin reach out. So that's where I grew up, And then later on, as I joined the church as a minister's wife, I did not hear about the Fellowship of the Least Coin. So I would say that it depends on the leadership, how it's handed down to the village people. And then later on, I knew about the Fellowship of the Least Coin when all the women start putting their money and sending it to our National Women's Desk. And then, so that's how I know about Fellowship of the Least Coin, just from within the grassroots people, inside within the village, and it's, within the remote places. That's how I know the Fellowship of the Least Coin. Not until 2 years ago when I joined the Fellowship of the Least Coin, and then I realized that it is an international movement among the women, working together, praying together, and supporting each other. And so my passion now is to continue to make it work like when I saw it when I was a child, so that all the women in the village can experience again. And because just before I came, I was talking with one of our women's fellowship coordinator, and I was sharing about the international committee of the Fellowship of the Least Coin, and she was, whoa, I thought it's just regional movement. I have no idea that it's an international movement. So I'm here on behalf of the Pacific and promoting Fellowship of the Least Coin, that yes, we are all connected globally.
I've had the privilege of being in Malawi on mission there 5 times, and when we're there in the village, the Muvano Guild meet once a week, and that has been another special time for me, is to share prayer with them and to be able to share Fellowship with the Least Coin. And one thing that I found that was very different there from what I'm used to in Canada is their least coin is what they live on per day. You know, that was very humbling for me, you know, when you come from Western society, and to realize those women giving up in prayer their least coin was a real sacrifice for them. But they wanted to share, and they wanted to be part of these projects that would help other people.
Perhaps it's good to add that this idea of the least coin came by Shanti Salomon.
Yes.
She was inspired by the biblical story of the widow who gives her least coin, and there is a young man, a rich young man, who gives much more, and Jesus says that she has done a good thing. And it means that every woman can take part in the movement. Though we are now rethinking the concept. In my church, they have the QR code, and when the time is to give your collections, your offerings, you can do with your, you can scan it and give money through that way. So perhaps we have to rethink this, but it is the original idea is a very good idea, that everybody can join the movement.
So far, at the moment, it's been, as I said, they kind of still looking at it. They want to learn more about it, how it works, because of some, that previous leadership, they did not, pass it on and inform the information about what the Fellowship that is going. But they know about it. It's also, they know about it, that it started off from Mrs. Solomon.
Yeah.
And they got an idea, and they were also talking about it, and they said, what about if we collect our coins and instead of sending it to the US, we use it within our communities and share, we reach out to our women that they also need our support. And so they want to localize or contextualize that idea in the communities. So they're very much using the coin.
The fellowship was already present in the Caribbean, and we had one woman who is very outstanding and is well known in the fellowship, That is the reason why the Caribbean was invited again. It's
Linda.
just that,
Linda.
it's just that the rest of the Caribbean that is involved in the Jamaica Council, the Caribbean Conference of Churches and the Jamaica Council of Churches were not involved. So we didn't know anything about it.
Yeah.
So now it's this whole education process to try to introduce it to persons to say this is what the fellowship is about, because we did not know anything
And
about
you
it.
will do this.
That's what I'm doing exactly.
Yeah.
So it's how the least coin concept from a theological perspective does matter. We understand that. It's how to contextualize that when the US dollar and the Jamaican dollar, the currency in the Caribbean, is so different.
Mickey Ashwood from the World Council of Churches. I represent the United Church in Jamaica and the Cayman Islands. And I heard about the Fellowship of the Least Coin through the World Council of Churches before I became a member of staff. Since joining the WCC, I have been participant in one of the Fellowship of the Least Coin International Committee meetings in Ghana. And I recall while we were there, as we shared stories, we not only saw stocks and balances, but we heard stories of the people. And one of the things that is especially critical for me about the way the fellowship operates is that we are about the business of prayer. We take prayer seriously. And so prayer is part of what we seek to do. There are times when we're not very good at it, I confess, but we've also been very intentional recently to once again restore the fellowship of prayer and the hearth of prayer among women. In the European region, where I work with Martina and others, we have also started a monthly prayer fellowship where we seek to gather, to pray, to share concerns, and to just uplift each other as we go about our day-to-day business. Join us, please.